My name is Pete Ash. I'm the head of content for the New York Stock Exchange, and you are watching Taking Stock live with Money 2020.
Welcome to the show, one and all. You're watching Taking Stock. I'm your host today, JD Durkin. We are still live here on the ground at Money 2020 in the beautiful city of Las Vegas, Nevada. Stable coins, digital wallets, agentic everything, all of these things, so much more front and center for all the can't-miss conversations that happened here on the ground this week, including, of course, the future of money itself. We will give you a recap of everything you may have missed here at Money 2020 this week. And, of course, we got to talk about the markets. The Federal Reserve earlier today announcing, as expected, a cut of 25 basis points, a 10-2 vote with two dissenters, but maybe not two dissenters who agree with one another. We'll talk about that in just a moment with Tom Bruni of StockTwits, our good friend from Wall Street, here on the ground with us here in Las Vegas. NVIDIA, the first company to reach a $5 trillion market cap, the big news shaking markets on this Wednesday. And markets, of course, hitting intraday all-time highs. A jam-packed edition for our final day of Taking Stock here on the ground at Money 2020. For the bell, Moody's celebrating the 125th anniversary of the company's first publication all the way back in 1900. Michael West, president of Moody's, here now on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, set to close the markets. And there you have it, the team from Moody's, a big celebratory day down the floor of the New York Stock Exchange for their team on a busy day of Wall Street, the first ever $5 trillion company and market cap size, a Fed decision, a Fed presser, so much more moving the markets on this Fed day. Let's talk to our good friend Tom Bruni. We usually have him down on the trading floor. How lucky am I to have the man himself join us here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Great to have you out here, my man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's start first and foremost with the Fed decision. As expected, a cut of 25 basis points. But the news of the dissenters, Stephen Meering, as expected, dissenting for his reasons, but Jeffrey Schmidt, the president of the St. Louis Fed, dissenting for maybe different reasons. What do you make of what we've heard from the Fed today?
Yeah, we're definitely keeping it interesting. Honestly, it's a very mixed environment. A lot of the economy, which we'll talk about, is hinging on the AI trade, and so there is weakness in the economy. Inflation is sticky, and so it's not an easy decision to cut here, but we have global central banks around the world saying, I'm prioritizing growth over inflation. The Fed needs to play catch up. It needs to play that game as well. And so I think overall the messaging hasn't changed. The market's looking for another 25 basis points at least this year and then more next. So it sets up for an interesting backdrop for the economy, but the market is liking what it hears.
Tom, you and I are old enough to remember back in the summer of 2018, we had the big debate. What would be the first company to reach a $1 trillion market cap? Apple did that in August, I believe, of 2018. Here we are. We wake up today, NVIDIA, $5 trillion. That AI trade remains strong. What do you make of that big news with Microsoft and a few others not far behind?
Yeah, $5 trillion for NVIDIA. Then we've got Microsoft and Apple hitting $4 trillion yesterday. If you take the top 5 market cap companies in the U.S., it's $18 trillion in market cap. The next largest country by market cap is China at $11 trillion. So there's a lot of concern about breadth. There's a lot of concern about this AI trade being the only thing that's working. But when you have these massive players that are this size and their earnings are working, their revenues are working, their guidance is good, you got to stick to the right side of that trade. And right now the bull is running quite hot, but it's going to continue.
Yeah, of course, ironically, a lot of those companies have high revenue exposure to a market like China, and certainly this won't exactly quiet the ongoing so-called AI bubble debate. We'll be talking a lot more about that the rest of Q4. Caterpillar hitting a fresh all-time high. I love talking with you as a chartist because you and I like to dig into the weeds. Talk to me about what you've seen out of Caterpillar's charts, and is infrastructure ultimately a bit of a sleeper trade here in Q4?
Yeah, industrials have been hot because of the aerospace and defense side of things. Caterpillar has been quietly running. It's up handily this year, one of the best performing stocks in the Dow. Its earnings, they beat on revenue, had good guidance, and the story was all about energy infrastructure. They're basically saying, hey, we're building all these data centers, we're building this infrastructure to support these tech giants, and people need equipment, people need energy, and they're the leader in the space. So stock's hitting new all-time highs. It has been for much of the last 6 months. So I think a lot of this was priced in, but then again, the stock was up another 10% today. So I think it's still an underfollowed story, and as people look for other ways to play the AI trade, Caterpillar and some of the other industrials that will provide the equipment and the services for this build-out is going to be a hot trade going into 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. And not far removed from the AI trade, the mega caps. It's a jam-packed week for earnings, and now we're having this renewed conversation over white-collar layoffs that we're seeing at firms like Amazon and many others. You think companies are cutting headcount to fund the ongoing AI race? And what do you make of the fact that we've got a lot of these layoff-related headlines the last few weeks?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I mean, Amazon, they cut 2% of their corporate workforce. That's 30,000 people. It seems like a lot. Ultimately, if AI is going to pay off, though, a lot of the jobs that were affected are kind of in those areas, middle management, that would kind of be streamlined by AI. So they're doing more with less, and then they're reshifting their spending to AI infrastructure, AWS, where investors are really looking for that growth to come through, because management knows if those numbers falter, that stock is going to take a big hit, and so they're doing whatever they keep that momentum going on the earnings side for sure.
All right, Tom Bruni of StockTwits, my man. He is one of our favorite go-to guests on the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange. So thrilled to have you out here in Vegas, my man. We'll see you back in New York soon.
Appreciate it.
You'll grab your mic, my man, Troy, and Mad Boy, you and I are going to head for a walk here. Here at Money 2020, we've been talking all week about the future of money, and one of the amazing parts of all of the programming here in Vegas this week, the can't-miss announcements from some really big household names. I'll run you through a few of my personal favorites we heard over the last few days. Western Union, first up, announcing it's launching its own stablecoin. Of course they are. It's called USDPT. Built on Solana, issued by Anchorage Digital Bank, set to debut early in 2026. Wyclef Jean, yeah, the one and only. He was on the stage here yesterday at Money 2020. Circle naming Wyclef Jean its new global culture advisor with a focus on financial inclusion. He did sing a little bit, by the way, Pete, on stage. Gave us a few bars from the Fugees. An absolutely awesome session here in Vegas. And in an interview we brought you here on Taking Stock yesterday, huge announcement. PayPal, new partnership between Venmo and Built. It will allow users to pay rent through Venmo and earn rewards in the expansive Built network. All right, folks, earlier this week here at Money 2020, our very own Remy Blair from FinTech TV sat down with Cash Razazzi of Circle for a can't-miss interview about the state of stablecoins, tokenization, and so much more. Take a look.
Welcome to FinTech TV. I'm Remy Blair. We're here at Money 2020-2025 in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I am joined by Cash Razazzi, who is the Chief Commercial Officer at Circle. Cash, great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Well, you are joining me on day 3 of Money 2020. A lot of announcements, a lot of events here taking place on the ground. But I want to ask you about Beats and blockchain.
Yeah.
And how does Wyclef Jean fit into the picture here?
Yeah. I had the pleasure of meeting Wyclef about a year ago, and I learned about his passion for financial access. He grew up in Haiti. He was born in Haiti. And during his early years, the transformative years of his life, he was impacted by some of the economic challenges that that country had. And so he knows firsthand what it's like to not have access to basic financial tools. In fact, there are 1.3 billion people around the world that are either non-banked or underbanked. And so he has a passion for that topic. And so we connected over that. And so that's what got him excited about stablecoins and USDC in particular, and the impact it can have in terms of access for the US dollar to those that need it the most. And so that's why we're quite excited about the opportunity to work with him and share stories about communities around the world that need tools like USDC.
And it's really interesting that here we are, the final quarter 2025. A lot has changed within the U.S. in terms of regulation for digital assets. And given that Circle went public earlier this year at the New York Stock Exchange. I think more American investors are aware of stablecoins because here in the US, when we talk about inflation, we're not talking about double-digit inflation that we see in other countries. And in terms of use cases, the US financial system tends to be more stable than not. So for viewers out there who are wondering, how is Wyclef actually going to help you further your mission? What would you say to them?
I think right now, the industry as a whole has an opportunity to reintroduce itself and to talk about the real use cases that digital assets and blockchain technology can bring to the world. And what if crypto didn't have an association with memes and speculation and charts, but it really had an association with real world use cases where people around the world can start to use digital assets in USDC to spend, to hold value, to move money around the world securely. And so working with Wyclef, he knows firsthand sending money back to his family in Haiti is difficult. Now with USDC, he's able to do that. And so in particular, we want to work with him to shed a light on these stories. So now everyone in the world, especially in the United States, can understand the power of blockchain and not associated with speculation, but more of an infrastructure that enables money movement and financial access to all. That's what we're really excited about in working with Wyclef.
Yeah, so now the term beats and blockchain makes more sense to me.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for breaking that down. But of course, I do want to ask you about ARC. So for our viewers out there who may not be as familiar, or if they are and they're wondering why the public testnet launch is so important, what would you say?
Yeah, so what does it mean for billions of people around the world to have access to stablecoins and for businesses to use stablecoins as a means of value transfer? Well, first you need infrastructure that allows that can handle that kind of capacity and throughput. And so we are launching ARC specifically for use cases of value transfer, where institutions around the world can depend on it. It's secure, and it enables high volume throughput. And so there's an opportunity to continue building infrastructure around the world. And we think with ARC as our own L1 blockchain, we can do that. And effectively, ARC becomes an operating system for the financial system, an operating system for the internet.
Well, Cash, great talking to you here at Money 2020. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the show, folks. You're watching Taking Stock. I'm JD Durkin. We are still live here on the ground for our final day of amazing coverage at Money 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Let's chat now with Michael Anderson. He's the EVP and head of enterprise business at the one and only SoundHound AI. Great to have you out here in Vegas.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's start first and foremost. I know you had a panel yesterday. What were you here to talk about? And in general, Michael, what are the kind of themes, the go-tos you're hearing in a lot of conversations at this year's event in Vegas?
Yeah, first of all, Money 2020 is amazing. Just being around the floor and actually walking around and seeing all the different vendors at FinTech is fantastic. But what we focused on yesterday was really around the adoption of agentic AI within the banking industry.
Oh, that's huge. So agentic AI, I've been saying all week, you don't go 10 seconds without hearing a reference to it, and understandably so here at a great event like this. What does agentic AI really mean to you personally, specifically through the lens of banking?
Yeah, so for me personally, what it does is it's going to revolutionize what we're doing in banking. And why is that? It's because we're now allowed to go from the generative AI perspective of asking questions and getting a response, now moving into taking action. So think about action around, I want to do a specific task within the banking industry, like I want to get a mortgage. I want to open a new account for my daughter. Whatever those things, those situations are, it allows you actually to do that simultaneously with one phone call and take that action through it versus calling in multiple different times.
Yeah, I wonder, have you gotten the impression from the big financial institutions, from the big banks out there, that maybe they're still a little bit slow, a little bit more cautious to adopt AI? And if so, what is the hesitancy, if you picked up on that?
So today, 70% of all the executives are actually looking at agentic AI and wanting to adopt it. They're in early adopter programs, so it's already out there fundamentally. They also have some legacy systems that they've already deployed that allow us to take those frameworks of those technologies and organically grow on top of them to deliver agentic AI.
How do you build trust for a lot of the big banks in these systems? You're talking about the biggest financial institutions. They have been arguably as important, if not more so, than any other industry for the great spirit of capitalism over well over 100 years. You're talking about vastly emerging technologies that are now changing by the day.
Right. So you have to think about user experience. You also have to think about making sure that user comes back to that experience multiple times. That's why you build these solutions. Secondly, you need to make sure you operationalize it. If you operationalize it and you build the right solutions for them, you will make sure you deliver the right experience for both your employees and your consumers.
Yeah, I mean, banks are like a lot of other companies at the same time. They're publicly traded. They're always eyeing ROI. What does that return on investment look like, you think, for the fintech majors out there who are willing to kind of take that leap out onto the AI lily pad?
Well, 7 out of 10 banks are already doing it in the enterprise space, leveraging our technology at SoundTown. I know there's other technologies out there that are adopted as well, but there's more than just conversational AI. There's autonomics AI, which is the ability for you to do non-conversational automation that delivers autonomous solutions as well. So think about taking an action that doesn't require a request from a human, but is actually captured from a technology like a reporting tool that allows you to actually generate those reports autonomously and pull them forward for you today if you want to go out and actually speak about what you're talking about within banking.
What do you think ultimately that does for the customer experience for a lot of the big banks? I know myself and so many people I know, sometimes you deal with your bank and you want the human touch. I want to be able to talk to a representative who can actually walk me through what I'm dealing with for my high yield savings account or whatever it is. How do you think the big banks need to kind of walk that tightrope a bit?
I think the tightrope is pretty narrow. We got to make sure that we adopt this correctly, again, back to user experience. But when I think about developing these solutions, I want to make sure I leverage the existing backend footprint that you already have, but also taking that forward and delivering this in a way that is actually secure and doesn't put you at risk for those users.
All right, it's been great to have you here on the show. Enjoy the rest of your time here in Las Vegas, my man.
Perfect.
Awesome perspective. Michael
Thanks,
Anderson,
sir.
EVP, Head of Enterprise Business at SoundHound AI. Congrats on all the success. Thanks a lot for being here. Folks, don't go anywhere. Much more Taking Stock coming up after a quick break, including my recent sit-down with the CEO of U.S. Bank, Gunjan Kedia. Much more Taking Stock live from Vegas after this. Let's do it, folks. Welcome back to the show. You're watching Taking Stock, still live here on the ground at Money 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Behind me, look at all of the big financial institutions and the big banks, amazing partners here for this tremendous event here at Money 2020. And that appropriately leads us into a great fireside chat I did earlier this week on the main stage at Money 2020 with Gunjan Kedia. She's the CEO of U.S. Bank. We talked all about her 30 years of experience in the banking industry and how she's approaching emerging technologies and what these changes mean for the future of the way that you will bank. Take a look. Welcome to Gunjan Kedia. Of course, Gunjan is the CEO at U.S. Bank. Gunjan, you've had an incredible career, McKinsey, BNY, State Street. Now, of course, your current role atop U.S. Bank, technological innovation and change. You've seen it front and center over the course of your 30 years or so in the banking industry. How have all of those experiences shaped your vision for leading through this current technological change?
And if I could point to one thing that my experiences have brought to me is not to fear change, but to relish it, because it's times of disruption and discontinuity where winners and losers are created. So if you're front-footed, you can come out on the other side with just distance between you and your competitors.
What would you say are among the most profound changes that are happening to the traditional banking space today?
Today, I think there are two very profound shifts happening, and we'll see the structure of the financial services industry change. The first is a re-examination of the regulatory and supervisory environment, in particular, recognizing new bank charters and digital currencies. And second is technology. You know, when I started my career in banking, it was the internet and mobile technology that completely changed the way banking was done and the type of banks that did it. And today, it's stablecoins, cryptocurrency, and just a profound shift in how money might move and who might move it.
How is U.S. Bank positioned to capitalize, would you say, Gunjan, on the current changes you're seeing?
Well, you know, the simple premise is if it creates value for the clients, you should lean into it and not try to defend an old product or an old business model. And yet we understand the ethos of our customers very well. I was having this conversation, JD, with a very visionary CEO of an AI company, and he says, tell me why people still use checks in the US when they don't anywhere else. Well, the thing is, you have to understand we are serving clients over 5 generations, and they come with very different mindsets, and money is very personal to a Gen Z and to a baby boomer. So we also understand what we must stay grounded on, the core mission, which is to infuse capital into our communities to create opportunity for new businesses and for people.
The relationship between traditional banking models and emerging technologies, you know better than anyone, it continues to evolve seemingly by the day. How do you balance those two? And I wonder, over the course of your career, have you ever experienced a tension between those two? Any notable examples from your banking career on that?
The two bring different moves to the chess game. And the partnerships create enormous value. I have observed over time that when there's prudent partnership between traditional banks and the best of the fintech world, customers win. And by creating enormous value for customers, we expand the revenue pool. So we don't, I don't think of it as a zero-sum game. I think there will be competition, there'll be partnerships, and in the end, I hope the customer wins.
Gunjan Kedia is the CEO of U.S. Bank. Thank you very much for kicking off our conversation. One more time. Welcome back to the broadcast, one and all. We are still live here on the ground at Money 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada. What an absolutely incredible week it has been. And who better now to round out the show than one of the people most responsible for making this event happen, Jeremy Barrington, CEO of Scribe, my man. Welcome to the show. Thanks for having us this week, dude. What a blast.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for being here and happy to talk to you.
There have been incredible themes. We're talking like agentic commerce. We're talking stabilization. We're talking tokenization, stable coins, etc. What have been some of the top themes, the big takeaways that you really noticed were pretty specific to programming this year here in Vegas?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for us, and obviously we work in crypto and blockchain, but having it go from sort of the side stage to the main stage, a lot of the really big programming this year was focused on institutional adoption of blockchain. So for us, that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that was all the one-on-one interview we just brought our viewers that I sat down with the U.S. Bank CEO, Gunjan Kedia. That's largely what she and I were discussing on the main stage, to your point. You could sense how front and center, how important that type of programming was. We're also in the midst of this big institutional adoption story for the bigger crypto majors. Wasn't that long ago, JB? A lot of the big banks, they didn't want to touch this stuff. Now we're seeing that adoption. What do you make of that broader trend that has really changed the last few years?
Well, you're right. I mean, 5 years ago, most of the reaction from institutions, if it got into crypto and blockchain, was either this kind of scares me or it's really not relevant to our business, right? It's just kind of this fun thing over here. And what we're seeing now is from the U.S. banks, the Franklin Templetons, the BlackRocks, the conversation has moved to, no, this is actually really central to the future of our business. And hearing them talk in a really sophisticated way about things like how do we have digital identity that we can trust, that's provable, that still maintains anonymity, I can promise you those conversations weren't happening 5 years ago.
How has at the same time, how has the evolution of crypto marketing changed? Because I think once upon a time, maybe this was viewed as a bit more of a niche product. It had sort of its own, very much a big fan base that really loved it, but it was considered more niche. Now we're really seeing it kind of front and center. And I'd imagine the marketing efforts behind a lot of these conversations have had to keep up as well.
Yeah, I think so. And it makes sense whenever you're working with novel technology that you're spending a lot of time initially explaining it. This is what a blockchain is, this is how the tech works, etc. And I think for the better, a lot of blockchain projects are really moving to hiding the wires in terms of we don't really need to tell you about the ins and outs of our consensus mechanism. What we're going to spend more time telling you about is like how this benefits you, how this benefits society, commerce, whatever, and really behaving more like established brands where they're doing the same playbook that an Apple or a Nike would do. So I think it's definitely gotten a lot more sophisticated.
And earlier on the broadcast, I was running through for our audience a lot of the big can't miss takeaways, the big announcements that the Western Unions of the world, the PayPals, the Builds of the world, they come here to Money 2020 to make those announcements as they are firmly planting their flag in the ground for what the future of money looks like. What are your favorite moments that you've had here in Las Vegas the last few days?
I think the Western Union one that you referred to with Solana and Anchorage Digital, I mean, that's really cool to see a company as old as Western Union is and as established working with Solana. And just having the perception so shift around that project because it was, historically meme coins or what have you, and now it's really one of the major financial rails of Wall Street, and just to see that shift has been really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, we got to leave it there. It is great to have you here, Jeremy Barrington, the CEO of Scribe. Thanks for everything this week. It's been awesome.
Thank
you for having us here in Vegas. Folks, at this point, I got to give an absolutely huge shout out to all the staff, the volunteers, the producers here at Money 2020. They did incredible work, and we are so thankful that we got the opportunity to be here. And personally, I got to shout out the entire production team from the New York Stock Exchange and FinTech TV. They do the hard stuff, so I could stand here and do the fun stuff. Tomorrow on Wall Street, no shortage of earnings. We will hear from Eli Lilly, Merck, and MasterCard in the morning. And then buckle up, folks. The mega caps set to report tomorrow after the bell include Amazon and Apple. We'll also hear from Coinbase and Reddit, a great NYSE-listed company. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., NYSE TV Live and FinTech TV, both back at the New York Stock Exchange. That's going to do it live from the ground here at Money 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we will see you tomorrow.